Hello, everyone. This is Tom McCaffrey. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to my channel, and please like this video. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about something. So I had a very odd experience just a few hours ago um, that I wanted to talk about. So, um, there's this woman who lives in my neighborhood that I know kind of well. Like I've seen her over the years, and she is a caretaker for someone that I that lives in the area that I know because my sister used to live here with her husband and her kids in this neighborhood where I live now. My sister and her family moved years ago, like to China, and my brother-in-law was in China for like 8 months, and so I don't. Basically, the point of this is like I see, I hadn't seen my sister for like 2 years in person because of the pandemic, and then my brother-in-law I don't really ever see, and I never really talk to him. It's just a very functional, whatever. It's just a normal relationship, with someone who's like married to your sister that doesn't live where you live. So so with this woman that lives in my neighborhood, something happened with her and my brother-in-law. I don't know what though. She never really tells me. She's Jamaican, which the only reason I bring up is because whenever I see her, she when she's talking to me, I can't really understand what she's saying that well because her accent's really thick. But she always, this has been going on for years. I'd say 3 years. Every time I see her, she'll be like, my name's Tom. She'll be like, Tom, why not Michael call me? And like Michael's the name of my brother-in-law, and and I have no clue what she's talking about. I don't know the business that they conducted together. I don't know. I think he did some work for her or something. I don't know. And like I said, I'm not really, when I talk to my brother-in-law, it's very rare, and it's just kind of like, oh, hey, what's going on? And so this has been going on for years, that every time I see her, she starts getting mad at me because my brother-in-law won't call her. And I'm always like, yeah, I don't know, like call him. And she's like, no, I do call him. You call him. And I'm like, I don't, like, why do you want me to call him? I don't even know what this is about. And she's like, oh, he ripped me off. And I'm like, okay, fine. I mean, look, so I don't know. Like, I'm always like, I don't know. I don't know what's going on. So call him. You have his number. You have his email. I think I gave her his number and email. So that's my extent of it. So today, it's always one of those things, like you'll be walking. I took like a different route home, and right when I turn to go the different route, of course I see her. So it's like, oh great, this is a great fucking idea. I should have stuck to my usual route. This is just another argument for staying, on the path that And like whenever I see him, I was like, oh fuck, because I know it's coming, and I know, I just it really is annoying, and I don't understand it. I don't, I never really, like, I think I've asked her like, well, what's going on? What's the problem? And she'll be like, he steal from me. And I'm like, that's such a vague thing to say. And I'm like, all right, well, I mean, so anyway, I see her and she's like, oh, hey, Tommy. I'm like, fuck. And she's with some dude. I don't know who he is, but he looks kind of mad. I don't think he was mad at me, but he just looked like an angry guy. And she starts going off on, my brother-in-law never calls her, and he took her money, and and I'm always like, I don't, and I just was so annoyed. I'm like, look, I don't know where, I don't talk to him. He doesn't even live here, so I don't really, and I'm like, and I've told him, and I saw him years ago that you want to talk to him, but and he said he'd call you. So it's like, so anyway, this is going on. And I look to my right, and sitting on a bench next to her is Bernhard Goetz, who is, I don't know if you know who that is, but he's the subway vigilante from New York, who from 1984, that it was this huge infamous case that kind of encapsulated the problems with New York City and how crime was so out of control. So he was this guy who was kind of this meek, timid white guy with glasses who looked really nerdy. And this was when, I was growing up here in the, 1984. I was like 11 years old, and he, the New York was out of control. Like, I mean, I was very sheltered at the time, but I could still feel it. Like, I mean, New York was just terrifying. When I would go outside, it was just like, it just felt like there was something in the air that was like, oh, something bad could happen at any second. It was like going into jail or something. Not that I've gone into jail, but I would imagine when you go to jail, you're like, oh, this is gonna not, like, bad things are gonna happen. So he was on the train. I guess he had been, robbed and harassed a lot because the train was just out of control. It was like covered in graffiti. The train was just terrifying in the 80s. It looked like it was designed by criminals. I don't think police were even allowed to go down there. I think there was like a law. But it's just these long, winding, narrow tunnels that were dark, and you didn't know where you were going, and everything was broken and vandalized. It smelled like piss. It was like a nightmare. So he was on the train, and I guess he had bought a gun because he kept getting harassed. And so these four dudes, these four black teenagers, that was a big thing too in the city. Not that it's been resolved, but like race relations were very fraught. So I guess they were like kind of harassing. They basically tried to rob him in a very non-aggressive way that he's even kind of admitted. And he had a gun, and he took it out and he shot them all, and none of them died, but he was arrested, and then I think he was acquitted for self-defense. One of the kids that he shot was paralyzed after the shooting, because I guess he had shot him another time when he didn't really need to, and that was kind of the question in the case, whether or not it was self-defense, because when he was first shooting them, when they surrounded him, he could argue that he felt that his life was in danger. So you're allowed to defend yourself in that situation. You're allowed to use force. And but the problem is he shot them, and then they were all down, and then he went back and shot one of them again. And the whole question of the case was, well, when he went back the second time, he definitely wasn't in danger of his life, so he didn't need to do that. And that was the shot apparently that paralyzed the kid. And then they found like sharpened screwdrivers in their pockets, these kids, and they all had records of like robbery, and like one of them went to jail for like right after this for like raping a woman and like throwing her off a building. I mean, they were like horrible kids. So anyway, Bernie Goetz, when I was a kid, was this huge cultural icon in New York. Like he was it was national, it was international. I've seen numerous documentaries about it. He's referenced in pop culture so many times. Like Billy Joel references him in "We Didn't Start the Fire," and Bernie Goetz gets name checked because that's how big in the pop culture landscape he was. He was like that much of a kind of an icon. He represented something. So he's also in a Beastie Boys song. They reference him. But so anyway, I've seen Bernie Goetz like I'd say at least 50 times in my neighborhood. He's always where in my neighborhood, because he's really into squirrels or something, and that's real. I've seen that like on the show. He's really into helping squirrels, and there's a lot of squirrels around where I live, so he's always there feeding the squirrels. And he looks like exactly the same. I'm having this interaction with this woman that I don't really know, that's kind of angering me, and I look, and just to make it even weirder, Bernie Goetz is right there staring at me because we're kind of I'm having an argument with this woman, kind of. And I don't know what I was in a really bad mood, and I was just like tired of her. She always does this thing, and this is what finally made me kind of not snap, but kind of like stop being polite and push back. Was she started coming at me like it was like I had something to do with it. Like this interaction with my brother-in-law, I don't even know what's going on. I have no idea why she's saying he owes her money. So I finally said to her, and she's like, well, I know, you need to call him. And I'm like, why do I need to call him? I go, first of all, I don't talk to him. He doesn't live here. And then finally I go, do I owe you money? And she's like, what? No, you don't owe me money. Mike owe me money. And I'm like, Well, then why are you mad at me? How come every time I see you, you come at me? I don't owe you any money. This guy owes you money, apparently. I'm not his keeper. I have nothing to do with him. So, if I owe you money, I can understand you hassling me every time I see you. And then she's like, no, but he owed me money, he owed me money. And then I go, go, oh, do you know Jeff? Where's Jeff? Can you call Jeff? And she's like, looked really confused. She's like, who's Jeff? Who's Jeff? And I go, Jeff, he's this guy I know that he owes me money. Like when I was in 11th grade, I gave him money. He never paid me back. Can you call him and get my money? And she looked, and it was a funny point that I was making, but I clearly went over her head. She was just like, I don't, why would I do it? And I'm like, that's exactly what you're saying to me. I have no clue why he owes you money. I don't know the situation. I don't know the scenario. You're just, don't involve me in this anymore. Like, I wasn't like completely unhinged, but I was raising my voice because I was just kind of trying to make points, but in a funny way. Like, I thought that was funny, the whole call Jeff and get my money, even though you don't know, even though you have nothing to do with it. So the really funny part that really freaked me out is like, so at one point I look up and Bernie Goetz is like staring at us, and he kind of like made this face at me, like almost like it was like he was like uncomfortable, like being around the situation. And then he like got up and walked away, and I guess went to like feed squirrels. And I was like, what is this? Is like, I'm in an altercation with someone on the street, and it's so uncomfortable and awkward that Bernie Goetz is like, hey, this is too much for me, get me out of this. I can't handle this kind of stress in public in New York City. And I was like, yeah, I think it's time for me to walk away. And I just kind of go to her, I go, look, I don't, good luck with it. And I just walked away. And then as I was walking, like Bernie gets kind of looked at me again because I was like, walking past him. And I was about to say something because I've seen him so many times and I never say anything because I'm so like freaked out. I'm like afraid. Part of me is afraid he's just going to freak out on me, because it's such an odd thing, seeing someone like that, because he's famous, but he's not like famous for doing things. He's not like a celebrity. Like if you see someone who's famous and you approach me like, hey man, what's up? I'm like a really big fan of your movies or of your acting. What am I going to say to him? Like, hey man, I really like the way you shot at those guys. Like, good job, man. That was cool that you shot everyone. But I was so kind of like incensed and, angry and kind of, I'd kind of had it with the situation. So I felt more like extrovert in that moment. I was about to say something like, hey man, what's up? But I didn't say anything. But that was an interesting thing. But look up the Bernhard Goetz case and Google him. And it's a very interesting case. I studied it in law school, and that was the big thing behind it, was that it was and the thing, I don't know if people remember this, the thing about him is he became like a hero in New York City, and even within the black community too, because everyone was like, oh, it was like a racist thing, but even people in the black community, a lot of them were like, yeah, I'm glad he did it, because at that time it was so dangerous. It wasn't really so much like a white and black thing. Like everyone was terrified. There was no one was spared. It was just kind of like, it was out of control. So I think a lot of people were kind of, that's why it encapsulated New York City at the time, because everyone was just kind of like terrified, and no one was doing anything about it. And then finally this kind of meek guy fought back, and everyone was kind of like, yeah, all right. It was kind of, it's kind of indicative of the movie Death Wish that had come out like 10 years earlier, where he starts killing muggers or shooting muggers on the street, and then the city's completely behind him because crime starts going down because criminals are now afraid. And anyway, so yeah, it's look him up. It's a very interesting case, especially the self-defense thing. And I think he did go to jail, but only for illegal gun possession. So all right, I'll be back. Thanks for watching. Like I said, please subscribe and like this video, and look up Bernhard Goetz and leave comments. Whatever your thoughts are on that case. And I'll see you next time. Bye bye.